What's going on? Happy Monday, happy Monday. Happy Monday, what's going on? What's going on? Happy Monday. Waiting for the sister to come on by so we can start this much needed discourse. Alright? Yes, happy Monday. How y'all feeling? How y'all feeling? It's beautiful outside. Beautiful. Alhamdulillah. It's beautiful. Oh man, we have the sister joining us in a couple minutes, talking about a whole lot of things. The sister, she has her own school. The sister, she does yoga. She does everything. So we're about to get it in. How you doing, beloved?
Give thanks and praises. I'm well. Give thanks for life. How you feeling, brother?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. I'm well, hanging in there. You know, everything is everything.
True. Peace to
So we're
everybody
about to
tuning in.
get started. Yes, we're about to get started. I'm going to do the intro and then you will jump in and then we'll get started.
No doubt. Okay. Whenever you're ready, King.
All right.
Yes.
Here we go. Loading right now.
Welcome to DTR 360 Books Podcast. DTR 360 Books helping to increase reading literacy. We are here to create more doers and less talkers. This is where we execute the knowledge and put it into action. Enjoy this week's episode of the podcast.
What's going on, family? Happy Monday, happy Monday. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, hotep, Islam, alafia, peace. Whatever greeting you go by, I greet you in the greeting words of peace, love, and happiness. Man, we are back. We are back with another episode. That's right, we are back with another episode. This sister that I'm about to bring on in a minute is an educator. She has her own schools. She's a business person. She's an entrepreneur. And she does so many other things. So definitely this is the episode that you want to check out if you're into homeschooling your own child, right? If you're into starting a school of your own, definitely she will give you the tips and she will give you the know-how in actually doing so, because we lack knowledge. That's one of the things that we lack, right? So we say we want to start our own school. We say we want to homeschool. We say we want to garden, but we lack the knowledge to do these things, right? So my thing is I bring on people who have knowledge in these areas so that you can get the information and not only get the information, but execute, right? Because knowledge is just knowledge. So you have to execute, and that brings forth wisdom and understanding. All right. So make sure that you take in the knowledge. Make sure you have your pens and paper ready. Take in the knowledge, but also execute. All right. So I have here the Sister Jeanette. Welcome, beloved. Welcome.
Give thanks,
How
brother.
are you?
Bless. Give thanks for life.
All right. So let's get started. So tell the people about your upbringing and tell the people about yourself, those who don't know you.
Okay. So welcome and peace and blessings to everybody joining in. Appreciate you, brother, for asking me to be a part of your podcast. Give thanks for the opportunity. So my name is Jeanette. I moved around kind of a bit, as I was growing up in a single family or single parent household. Went to regular public school, went to college, got my degree to be an educator in elementary, K through 5, and pursued some graduate studies within bilingual education. So I speak Spanish. Um, and I think from around the time I was about 19 is when, rather when I was in high school, I started seeing that certain ailments that our families deal with can be prevented. So that was like a pivotal time for me to realize that decisions that I make can either add on or take away to my lifeline and that of the children that come through me, right? And so I made certain decisions to live differently. And I think from that stage, after high school into college and since such time, so I say around 19, my whole life has really been centered around knowledge of self, around plant-based lifestyle, upon, health, wellness, sustainability, and really just learning how to master oneself. Fundamentally, I think that's the mission. As I was growing up, I also read a lot of books that spoke to the journey to know the divine. And I realized that too is the mission, like yourself as part of divinity, as part of source. So all of these elements kind of come into my lifestyle. How I live, what I do, who I surround myself with, what I consume, by way of seeing, hearing, reading, eating, drinking, etc. So at this time, I am plant-based. I have 3 children. I'm a wife. I'm certified as a Kemetic yoga instructor as well as a vinyasa instructor. So I have different trainings within internal movement, internal arts. And I think that also stemmed from my introduction to martial arts some years ago. Yeah, so in a nutshell. That's
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Great. So you mentioned, you mentioned a whole lot of things. So knowledge of self, right? So let's start there. So, so you said like at the age of 19, that's when you had a knowledge of self, and that's when you basically took in a route of eating healthy, as you said, being around people that will uplift you, being around people that was positive, so on and so forth, right? So now, with the knowledge of self-peace, at what book actually that you read that woke you up in a sense, like whoa, okay, now I see the world in which we live in. So what book was that?
Ooh, it's a little hard to say, honestly. Around that time, I was learning a lot about Black Panthers, Malcolm X. So in that time, in that period, I would say it's more so books, not one particular book. It was really a lot of books around liberation, civil rights. I was reading about political prisoners in that time, the autobiography of Malcolm X, like I mentioned, and even something outside of like history and culture. I used to read works of Khalil Gibran, the prophet, for example, that really spoke to like the internal work, So yeah, I can't pinpoint at this time like what particular one book, because I really was delving into a lot of different types of books in that
Okay.
time. Yeah,
So
but it was
it was
really,
like a
it
combination.
was a combination, and also a combination of conversations I was having, the people I was around. Um, yeah, so it's a combination of books. And I listened to NPR radio in that time a lot as well. So it was just, really fundamentally anything that's centered around liberation, freedom. And in that time too, I read some like Black nationalist book by Kwame Nkrumah. So it really was a combination. I can't really pinpoint one, to be honest with you.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
So, granted, during the 1960s, we see that a lot of things that happened then is still happening now, right? We're still fighting and advocating for quote unquote civil rights. We're still marching in the streets, right? Our children are still getting gunned down. There's mass shootings are still happening in churches as it did in 1963, and we can even go before that, right? So do you see a change and evolution, or do you see a sense of us devolving as a
I,
people?
well, there's levels, I would say, too. I mean, these experiences are social and systemic. So we as a people naturally are evolving. Um, Yet the system that we are engaged with, I think is devolving, because if you stay with a certain mindset or practice, you basically are stagnant. So I think the system within this space that we live in has reciprocated the same tactics from such time till such time, even before civil rights era, just when it comes to controlling people's mind, body, decisions, and environment. These things have been established systemically and maintained systemically. So in terms of the system, yeah, maybe some things, we see black president, all these different things may have happened, right? But the system of oppression and white supremacy hasn't changed. That still is embedded within the fabric of this society. But as a people, we evolve. I definitely feel that we've evolved on a conscious level, spiritually. This age that we live in, we're completely influxed with information, and some are utilizing such information to make decisions of how they can control their environment, their family, how they can create communities. And we always have a long way to go, I'd say. We always have a long way to go. There are some aspects of like the 60s and then time in those times that we need in terms of unity and the power of community, and standing with one another, working with one another. So that's why I say there's like levels to this, right? But systems of oppression haven't quite changed that much. And for us, they may have opened up for certain communities of people, but oppression against Black and Brown people really continues.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we still see like, people that have been in prison then for their political positions are either have died in prison, have been killed, or are still in prison, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah, so I think
Indeed.
fundamentally we could, learn from those that came before us and really figure out how we can make decisions to control our immediate families, communities, children, and kind of expand from there. It's a constant work. You know.
Yes, yes, because evolution is key. Just like Rakim said, evolution causes expansion, right? So we should all be willing to evolve, right? And as we evolve, we expand and um, become better than the day that we was before.
It's
So let's just,
inevitable. Even the earth evolves. The consciousness across the earth, universally is evolving. It's like, what do we attach to? What do we grow toward or move toward? I think this is inevitable as a people to evolve as beings. Hmm.
right, indeed, indeed. So in order to evolve, right, you gotta eat right. Your mind gotta be right. Your mind gotta be sharp.
Indeed.
uh, your temple, your body have to be clean, right? Because what you eat dictates what you think, and what you think dictates how you act and your characteristics. So definitely what you put in your body is pivotal and crucial to how you think and act. So that being said, I see that you're a vegan, correct?
Yes.
And so now you're eating like raw vegan for like a certain amount of time. Um, so is it like a specific time of the year that you decide to eat raw vegan? That's one. And then the second question is, what is raw vegan for people who don't know?
Right. So, in terms of, is it a specific time? No, not necessarily. My husband and I just decide, um, okay, do you want to go vegan now? I mean, raw vegan now? And since I'm the one who prepares the food, we come
Right.
into agreement, and we just decide to do so for any period of time that we choose to. We decide, okay, well, I'm ready for some cooked food. Then we do that, and we make that decision, together. So we tend to do this periodically. It's not necessarily in alignment with um, seasonally, but it happens to work seasonally.
Right.
It really just be something instinctual. We decide, okay, if we notice, actually, the other piece is if we notice that our body or our energy level is becoming more sluggish, the energy isn't like high vibing, we then decide to, ease off of the cooked food and just consume more fresh juices, fresh fruits, fresh greens. And we do this all the time anyway. Like we're always drinking green juices. We're always having like, fresh smoothies, for example, fresh fruits and greens. But we're just really removing the cooked food in this moment, So in terms of what is raw vegan, for the most part, there's like an 80% to 20%, 80% being raw uncooked food, cooked food that is not cooked higher than 116 degrees. Basically, fundamentally, you want to maintain the live enzymes in the food so that your body can optimally benefit from the nutrition of the foods that we're consuming. Because we eat emotionally, but we are biologically, we need to eat to sustain our functions, our brain functions, our systemic functions, our circulatory system, our endocrine system, our even our skeletal system. All the systems that make up our body needs to be fueled by what we consume, by the water that we sip, by the air that we breathe in. So when we remove the emotion from eating, when we remove the addiction to food, we're able to spend time in consuming the live, unprocessed, unpackaged foods that are wholesome, that are in the most natural state that they've been grown in. So
So,
in terms of the 20%, some people incorporate a 20%. So it could be, some slightly cooked food, maybe some dehydrated foods as well, or fruits or breads can be made in a dehydrator. Um, yeah, but right now soups, even some raw soups can be made without overcooking them, because most times soups are really boiled down and the vegetables inside of them are cooked to like they're so soft you're almost just drinking them. So raw soups can also be made as long as they're under a particular
so
temperature. Yeah.
other than soups, what are some other meals that we can have if we want to eat raw vegan?
Yeah. I tend to overcomplicate when we do raw vegan, honestly, because I want to do these like lavish meals, this raw
Right.
lasagna with like layers and, dehydrated bread and crackers. Like I tend to want to do too much, and that's not sustainable for me sometimes. So really this go round, I'm looking to keep it really simple. Just really consume fresh juices, fresh green juice every day, first thing in the morning. I mean, we tend to drink water or lime water first thing in the morning to help boost the digestive system and the elimination process. But soon after that, or after that process, having a fresh green juice uh, to help the metabolism of your
Okay.
system and help your body also absorb the nutrients. And so when you're drinking a green juice, try to drink it slowly, don't drink it quickly, and it's good to also sip it out of a straw so you could take your time with it. I read in the book, it said one time that when you're drinking a green juice, you want to um, take as long as it would take for you to eat that meal, if it were a meal, if it were a salad. So you don't want to hurry up and gulp it down. You want to take your
Mhm.
time with it, because digestion really begins in the mouth, absorbing through the tongue and all of that. So fresh juices, fresh fruits, variety as much as fruits that you can find. Sometimes we're limited in the US as to what fruits we have available to us. But if you can find local markets, Caribbean markets, some Asian markets too might have more variety, farmers markets, local farms, local community gardens, maybe not so much the gardens with a variety of fruits, but definitely local farms. Look into different farms that can offer you a variety of fruits and fresh greens like roughage. Eat some salad and add at least 7 different ingredients in your salad. If not 7, 14, so that can come in a variety of green leaves, and herbs, parsley, cilantro, dill, basil, and
Watercress.
onions. I love throwing onions in my salads. And then you can also boost up a salad with like hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds, goji
Chia
berries if
seed.
you like, peppers and tomatoes. Yeah, so right now that's how we're going to do it. We're going to do a lot of salad. I may be sprouting as well, like sprouting some mung beans, sprouting some lentils, sprouting some chickpeas. Uh, those are primarily the beans or peas that I like to sprout. Yeah, so chickpeas, lentils, and mung beans. And throwing them because they're in that germination state. And within the germination state, that's where the nutrients are so rich. And it's a
Hmm.
very, very great time to consume them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
So that's
we definitely going to get into the agricultural part of this segment and the gardening, if you will. Let's talk about education, right? So I know that you have a school which is like, man, superb. I'm an educator myself. I teach charter school first graders, right? But I know like homeschooling is a different ball game, right? And needless to say, our children. I just posted a video. I think it was yesterday. Dr. Umar Johnson, shout out to Dr. Umar. He said that until we educate our own children, we will never be free,
facts.
right? And
Yeah,
Malcolm X said, may Allah be pleased with him. Malcolm X said that uh, if you allow the white man to teach your child, then you're a fool. He said only a fool will allow a white man to teach your child,
facts.
right?
Yeah.
So, we got these different quotes, we have the knowledge of, and we know that if we send our children to public school, certain charter schools, that they will not reap the benefits that we want them to reap, right? But yet we still send them to these public school systems, some charter schools, and, it's like a revolving vicious cycle because they don't get the education that they need, right? And then they end up getting a poor paying job, right? And then so that poor paying job ends up you living back in a poor paying neighborhood, and then the cycle still continues.
Right.
So you have your homeschool program, a Pan African homeschool enrichment resource program. Now, why have you decided to establish a homeschool program?
Sure. Well, first, I'd like to say for folks that do send their children to public or charter schools, even private schools, sometimes it's a choice and it's a necessity, so it's like no, down. I don't want to throw any shade on folks that do make that decision to send their children to the educational system of their choice. Um, because I did with my firstborn. My firstborn is 18 years old, and I first started homeschooling him, and then I went back to work, and he went into school. So there are some benefits within these systems, and I too been trained as an educator as yourself. I find though, when we are able to direct to orient the information that our children are exposed to from very young, it enables them to, one, love themselves. That's first. and we're able to expose them to their own history and their own culture, and for us, our way of life, right? We don't have to submit to, for example, holidays that public schools teach, that they celebrate, that they surround our children with. If in our home we don't do that, and then like if we happen to send our children to public school, we have to then deprogram our children. Okay, no, we don't celebrate Christmas, we don't celebrate Halloween, we don't celebrate Valentine's Day, so that's just one small piece. So there's certain things. So fundamentally, I think when we are able to decide what information we share with our children, what they're exposed to from very young, we're able to help form their mind from the very impressionable ages, the very beginning stages. And homeschooling really can be from the very beginning all through till the time whether they decide to go to a trade or a college or start a business as they grow older. I've always known that I wanted to homeschool my children, even as a young mom. I was not the type of person to send my children off to a daycare center after 6 weeks of being born and put them under the responsibility of somebody else. I find that for me is vital and important to raise my own children. And so that's been my choice. And thankfully, I'm in a space that I can do that. When we're not in a space that we can do that, what's important then is to find other people that can do it and create a support system to make that happen for your children if that's your choice. So homeschooling helps us teach specifically, also helps us teach specifically to the needs of our children, to the interests of our children. We're able to accelerate their learning, expose them to their ancestors and practices that they're not going to see in public school systems, like honoring ancestors with libation, for example. We're able to incorporate meditation, movement, breath work, self-regulation tools from very young so they can learn how to manage their emotions. We're able to have conversations about brotherhood and sisterhood and respecting of the elders. And we're able to teach them fundamentally basics, reading and mathematics, science from very young. Again, history and culture from very young. With my first experience, my firstborn at 5 years old, he was already reading chapter books. So when I had to bring him in the public school system, he was already in a space that was academically, linguistically, and literally in terms of literacy above his age group, his peers rather. So with other families,
So hold
go ahead.
on, beloved. So
Yeah,
you
sure.
said your firstborn, your first seed, by
Yeah.
the time he reached 5 years young, he was already reading chapter books.
He was reading chapter books. That boy
Wow.
was
Okay.
devouring books.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't want that to go over people's heads. Right? No, because
Yes.
that again,
Yes.
that is paramount. And again, I just love that. And I just
Yes.
want to dissect that situation a bit.
Sure.
So what prompted you to have your first seed to read so much so that by the time he was 5, he was reading chapter books?
Yeah.
What
Really, it
prompted you?
becomes, yeah, it really is a practice. Like mindset, I mentioned when I was around 19 is when I made certain decisions that was going to form who I was going to evolve into. And one of those things as I went into my 20s is how do I want to be as a parent, as a mother, as one who was able to cultivate life within the womb. So when we're asking and reflecting on these kinds of questions, the understanding of we form our children from the womb. So reading when our children are in the womb becomes vital. Having communication with, the child that is growing within the womb becomes vital. And so it just was natural in our household to read every single day to the child, read books, children's books, even like read Proverbs, read anything, any inspirational word. Within that time, I was within the Rastafari lifestyle. So we was reading the Bible, we was reading the speeches of Haile Selassie, and we was reading children's books as well. So it really was like not something we overthought. It excuse me, it was something that just came natural. This is what we do,
Mm.
this is what we
Wow.
do. Yeah, we chant, we sing, we use our, because word sound is power. So if we
Yeah.
empower our children with literacy, with words, with empowerment, then we give them the tools that they can then grow with. And I think as he became a little older, so I have three boys, as he became a little older, and that children get, just like they're little humans, they get their own little interests. He then will gravitate toward books that of his interest, and they might be little silly books or what have you, but knowing that he has the mind to make a decision as to what to read and what to read and what he is interested in, it just became like it's normal really. So in our home, like, books is a thing.
Yeah.
Reading is a thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it just continued from there. And then outside of reading, I think also exploring. Like, we went to a lot of museums, we were out a lot, and having conversations about the world around us. Because, yeah, you could learn a lot from a book, but you also have to come out and have them experience life outside of the books as well, and give them the language to express what it is that they are experiencing. So yeah, I think it's fundamentally, once you have reading, you can learn anything. You can learn
Exactly. Reading is the
anything.
foundation.
That's the foundation to
Reading is
anything.
the foundation. I always say that children first should be taught how to read so that they can read to learn, right?
Oh,
Because us,
indeed.
even as adults, we uh, we can read, but are we reading to learn? Are we comprehending what we're reading? Right?
Yeah.
Can we summarize what we just read? Right? So
Right.
those who are follow me, and I also teach a class, reading mastery, in my school. So reading, and of course I sell books.
Right.
DTR250books.com.
Right.
So shameless plug, but
Why
I
not? You're
I
needed. You're needed.
right. um no, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you for shedding light on education. Thank you for shedding light on reading and information. And because we need a lot more mothers like you, we need a lot more wives like you. And granted, there are some, but I'm saying we need a lot more, right? Uh, those because mothers are the first teachers of the child, right? And so that message she gives to the
Yes.
child, that child gives to the world.
Yes.
So I can bet you 9 times out of 10 that your first seed, even all of your sons, right? When they grow up to be adults, they would remember, like, nah, my mom, you know what I'm saying? She read to me when I was young. So let me read to my seeds now, right? My mom, she had libraries inside of our household. Let me have a library
That's
inside
right.
of my household, right? So
That's
they will
right.
remember these things, right? And
Facts.
they were put subconsciously in the back of their minds that
Facts.
education is still pivotal. Education is
Exactly.
still the core to our well-being, to life in general. So
Indeed.
again, I just applaud you and love that, because still, even today in 2022, we have more sneakers and shoes
Mm.
inside of a household than books. That's
Mm.
fact. That's
That's a
facts, right?
shame.
And yeah, I'm not coming down on anyone. Those who follow me, I just state facts, and sometimes I'm just too blunt. But it is what it is.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so unless we balance, it's okay to have a balance, but right now there's more materialistic things instead of things that can be put inside of our body, instead of things that can help develop our mind, body, and soul. We
Right.
still love to look good outside instead of loving to look good and feel good inside.
Yeah, right, right.
So we
It
need to change
definitely.
that.
Yeah, in fact, if that's a fact. I love that you said, you mentioned having libraries in our homes, because we used to kind of, so books is an interesting thing, right? With it among like throughout history, because we couldn't read. We
Right.
were basically punished to
Exactly.
learn to read if we knew how to read, right? But we value books, like we value books, and we need to return to that space of valuing books and having books for our children to go to. I mean, especially right now that you could just go into your phone and look up anything that you want to find out, and that's cool because I mean, I do it too. Hey Google, you know what I mean? I go and search something real quick. But to know that this information in depth, because anybody could put anything on Google,
Exactly.
that information on the internet is not credible necessarily. It's not necessarily credible. Anybody can put anything online.
Exactly.
Who's putting the information on Wikipedia? Like, who are you trusting? But when we are able to look at a book, and now a lot of people are publishing too, but when we're able to look at some books that we can cross-reference, that we can we know that have been around for such time, especially if you're looking to learn about history and culture, even nutrition. There's a lot of information on nutrition that is
Oh
old
yes.
and it's just resurging now.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So having libraries for our children to see that this is part of our lifestyle, going to libraries is
Yes.
like
Having a
it's
library card,
do that.
right? Man, growing up, I
Yes,
used to have a library card. I mean, it used to
we
have a
have a
balance on
library
it. I
card.
mean, I owed money on it, but listen, you already know, like, but I
Yes,
still have a library card, right? So
indeed.
nowadays, these
Vital.
children know nothing about library cards. Like,
Yeah,
what are
yeah.
we doing as parents?
Now we need to take our children to the library. I mean, we do often. When I first started homeschooling, actually, that's where we would go. I lived in Irvington in that time, and we would go to the library. We'd go to the library for their arts and crafts. We'd go to the library to borrow books in their children's room, and then they had like an extra room. It was like a conference room. Eventually, I met a sister that now is a good friend of mine, and she was homeschooling her children. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So I grew my part of my community in a library, and then
wow.
we used to meet weekly. Sometimes we met twice a week in the library in that conference room, and we did our classes there. We did our lessons. There was a blackboard there. There were tables. Like, we had lunch there. Like, we had this. It was like our classroom, really, and it's
Hmm.
right within the community. So sometimes we miss the jewels in our communities, and then especially, man, you got to visit your community libraries, because there's some people in there that they could just sit with you and just give you some straight knowledge. Some elders, they could just sit with you and give you some knowledge, and they do have programs to help supplement whatever you're doing, they'll help you supplement. I mean, right now where I'm living, libraries are kind of whack, honestly, because I'm kind of like in a suburban area, and I don't like going to the library for the people to lead me no kind of way, or lead my children, because I like my children to be taught by people that look like them.
Right.
But we still go to the library because we're going to show up and be like, yes, this is what we do. We also read books. We're going to borrow 25 books at a time. We're
Right.
going to cap out the library card, because it's a practice. And yeah, it's cool to look sweet. It's good to be fit. It's good to, have your style or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But to know that, knowledge of self is something that can never go out of style. It can never be taken away from you.
Exactly.
It grows you. It grows the people around you, and again, you can learn anything once once you look for the information, because it's out there. It's out there, not so much on Google. I mean, information is out there. I'm still
Yes. Yes.
learning books I'm still learning stuff with the books I borrow from the library with my child, because we do like nonfiction books, we'll do
Right.
fiction books, you know what I'm saying? So the variety of what you can learn is just amazing. Yeah, so we definitely
Man,
for it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, man, we just went up on a rant, but I love it. I love
Sorry.
it. Nah, nah, it's cool. I started it up. I started
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, keep
Um,
it lit.
yeah. So tell the people, if they are now tuning in, tell the people your homeschool program, and if
Right.
they want to have their child to be a part of your institution, where can they contact you at?
Indeed. So we are at Umi Tribe. So that's UMI Tribe, TRIBE, right here on Instagram. It's me and another sister that basically run the space, run our homeschool network. We call it an enrichment resource because it's not a full-time program at this time. It's a small group, and right now we're working with two and a half to, well, right now we have 2.5 to 4-year-olds. We would like to expand it to 6-year-olds, but it's only she and I right now in a relatively small space. So we basically are working with what we have, and that's another thing for anybody who's interested in homeschooling. Like, use what you got, use what you have. So yeah, you could just go to Umi Tribe right here on Instagram and just send us an inbox at this time. We at this moment have are at a very I guess in terms of exposure, we are like a virtual mom and pop, because we don't have a website set up at this time. You could just link us directly and we will directly communicate with you. We have a questionnaire that we send out to the parents that are interested. And then we do a video Zoom chat just to get to know each other a little bit. We might do a trial class and then invite, the child to come on in. And we like to keep it relative at this time. We like to keep it relatively small because we want to make the best use of the space that we have, and we want to be able to meet the needs of all the children that we have that we are working with. So eventually, we're looking to have a 3-day program. And that's just like one of the goals that we have, because ultimately this is like a piece of something bigger in terms of looking forward to provide, like classes and workshops for multi ages up to even adults. Because the sister and I, we just have a lot to share in terms of education. The sister, she's trained as a social worker, so her profession has been social work. So she comes with like a counseling component to it, and she also studies African studies, and that's what she adds on to our program, as well as the marketing piece. I work on the curriculum, planning, and delivering, and like the mindfulness and movement. And of course, it's a plant-based program, so we meet from the morning into the afternoon with the lunch in between. Yeah, so that's how you could communicate with us right now, straight through Umi Tribe right here on Instagram, and then we could
Okay,
start
so
the
it's at
conversation.
so
Yeah, so
it's at Umi Tribe.
at Umi Tribe, UMI Tribe, TRIBE, and we're in New Jersey right now. Yeah, we're in New Jersey right now for the person who just asked. Um, yeah, I can't see
Cool.
how to scroll up. You
So
got
yes,
it?
if you are listening to this on YouTube, is at UMI Tribe TRIBE on
Yes,
Instagram at
yes.
Umi Tribe.
There it is. Yeah, so you could just send us a DM and we will communicate with you. Like I said, we have a questionnaire, and we make it very personable because it's a family fundamentally. It's a family. We are an enrichment resource. So yeah, we meet and we teach the children, but we also provide tips for the parents to work better with their children, to help their children learn how to read since they're young, to just practice certain skills that we are working on when we meet together. We share with the parents what ancestors we're studying. We'll send them links of different maybe animations that can engage the children to further facilitate and to further help the children learn about or remember, even review what we've been learning when we are in a whole group setting.
Yeah, so give us a tip right now. Give us a tip for the mothers and the parents that may be on this live with us at the moment, or that may end up viewing this on YouTube. Give us a tip on how we can help our babies, right? Because we're talking 2, 3, 4 years young. Give us some tips on how we can help improve our babies' reading skills.
Read to them. Every single day. Read to them. Ask questions as you're reading. We have a practice every night. We read at least one book, and then after we read a book, this is with my 3-year-old, I tell a story, you know, and the story can be about anything. Make up a story, right? It could be a story about what we did today or yesterday or a month ago. It could be a story about anything at all, because it helps activate that creativity within them and their imagination, and able to see what you're saying, you know, and then they can also finish the ending of a story that you're creating,
Oh wow.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, there's so much that you can do at this very young age. So the main tip I would say with these types of practices is to help nurture and cultivate a love of learning, a curiosity for learning, you
Yes.
know, and they ask questions about everything. Let them express themselves. And sometimes it could be a little bit challenging because they're young and their language is developing. So we as adults can get impatient, right? Like, or we could just ignore them. Oh, they're just babbling. Oh, it's just baby talk or whatever. For, you know, the children are still developing their linguistic skills. But be patient with them, you know, help them speak more by speaking to them more
Right.
with some rich language, right?
Mm. Yes.
Rich language. Give them rich language. We don't do baby talk, even from
Right.
baby. We don't do no baby talk. You know,
Right.
give them rich language so that they can express. And sometimes, you know, I tend to speak fast a little bit. So sometimes we need to slow down how we talk to our children so that they can learn how to pronounce the words that we're saying, and they can follow along because they're just learning. They just came earthside. So we need to help them process all that they're seeing, all that they're hearing, and then help them get it out of their head and out of their mouth, right? And these are the tools that we equip them with by how we engage with them. So develop a love of learning, and
Yes.
let them speak, listen to them, ask them questions, honor their position. Yeah,
I
honor
love
their
that.
point of view.
Love that. Develop a love for learning.
Yes, for learning.
Definitely. That's
Yeah,
a bar right there.
indeed,
um,
indeed.
so we know that, well, we don't know, but I know that you're also into yoga, right?
Yes.
How did you get into yoga, and how has that, how has that fostered into your well-being?
Mm. Okay, so I am, my sun sign is Sagittarius, so I'm fiery.
Oh,
And
you're a Sagittarius as well?
yes, sir. I
Okay,
heard
yes,
you are too.
yes, yes. So am I. December
Yes,
2nd.
yes. Well, I'm later on on the 20th, so we still got number 2 up in there.
Yes, yes. Are you into numerology?
Yeah, a little bit.
A
I
little,
need to
okay.
actually get a little deeper. You know, I
Yeah,
have Lloyd Strayhorn's book I need
yeah.
to get
Shout
back
out to
into.
Louis Strayhorn. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not deep into numerology, but I've studied over the years, so I know a little something about numerology.
Yes, yes. Um, I tend to be fiery, right? And because when I was younger, I really didn't express myself too good. You know, and like
Mhm.
the immediate reaction will probably be anger. So the practice of yoga, meditation, breath work started with martial arts. I was going through a difficult situation in that time, and my firstborn was in a martial arts school in that time, Ninja University in Irvington. And I was like, well, do you have like adult classes? Because like I want to do a class,
Right.
because I needed to find an outlet to release things that I didn't know how to release. And so they started a kung fu class. It was a kung fu and tai chi kind of blended class. That it was a small group of us. I wasn't there, and you know, that's we've always watched martial arts flicks, so I've always was into martial arts, and I've kind of lived through my youngest with the martial arts training. So I started there, and eventually I just started doing some yoga practices at home, like using videos or whatever.
Right.
Eventually, I think it was in 2015, I met brother IT Blues, and he is a Haitian brother that was practiced that does Egyptian yoga. And so I took a couple classes with him and eventually got trained in Egyptian yoga. I was certified to teach Egyptian yoga.
So
And
is that different than regular yoga?
yeah, uh, so I was trained in two different forms of ancient Egyptian or Kemetic practices. Egyptian yoga, one which is known as Smai Tawi, and then there is Kemetic yoga, the Kemetic yoga skills method that is taught by Yasir Rahotep, who's based in Chicago. It is different from Indian yoga because it speaks to the origin of yoga being in Africa.
Okay.
And I think that is vital because throughout time and history, a lot of folks want to displace the sovereignty, the royalty, and the beginnings of mankind being in the cradle of civilization, Africa. So we see within Kemet, even now, there are Kemetic positioning, even meditative positioning, breath references on the walls, the temples, the columns of Kemet. And so returning to the root, I think, is a main difference. Another difference is specifically with Kemetic yoga skills method, it's a slower paced process, very focused on your breath. It follows the rule of 4 breathing technique. It progresses geometrically, so from more simpler to more complex movements, keeping lines, geometrics, lines and shapes within your physical body as you go through the sequences. And it's really about moving, being aware of the energy that is flowing through you and around you and directing it. And more time releasing stagnant energy that might be even calcified within your joints, that then translates into your mental space, your emotional space, and your spiritual well being. Okay, so what is blocked within your being that is not allowing self mastery to flow, that is not allowing all the beauty of life, which is abundance, prosperity, love, joy, peace, balance, harmony, reciprocity, order, and these references in terms of balance, harmony, order, reciprocity, truth are the principles of Ma'at, which
Yeah.
is, out of Kemet, where it speaks to the condition of your heart. How light is your heart? Is it as light as a feather? Because when our heart is as light as a feather, we are able to live itinerally or eternally, right? We're able to live um, without bondage to fear, to anxiety, to depression, to oppression, to all kinds of negative energies that limit our fullness, because we are, some say the temple of the Most High. We are, a temple of divinity. We are a divine temple. We are source incarnate. We are the expression of the Creator in physical form. So it's really the practice of how to come into that space.
Dope, dope. Man, I've been reading up on Egyptian yoga myself.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
yeah,
Mata
actually,
Ashby.
yes, actually, I sell this book as well on my website,
Good.
Egyptian Yoga, The Philosophy of Enlightenment. So
Indeed.
definitely a deep book.
Indeed.
Um,
Yeah, that is one of the books that we used in the first training I went through. Uh,
okay,
it it does it does go through the different. Is that the Egyptian yoga book? Let me see which one you have again.
yes, but Dr.
Okay,
Ashby,
the philosophy. Okay, to enlightenment. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Dr. Ashby, Dr. Monta
Dr.
Ashby
Ashby,
has a lot of different books that speak to Kemetic yoga,
yeah,
Egyptian yoga, Smatawi, and the philosophies and all of that behind the practice. So that definitely is a good read. Um, That's one of the books that we used in our training,
Okay.
among a few others. So also when it comes to the practice, it's not only about your movement. It's really about, your breath. It's really about what you consume. Like I made reference in the beginning of this interview. What are you eating? What are you drinking? Right? Because your body, it wears it. Your biology wears what you consume. So what we eat might slow down our digestive system, our elimination process. So to live, to embody the practice of Egyptian or Kemetic yoga also incorporates how we eat, what we don't
Mm.
eat, how we live, how we treat each other. Are we living according to the laws of Ma'at? Are we living in balance with the earth, with the creatures in the earth? Are we stealing from one another? Are we stealing even each other's time? Are we dishonoring ourselves? Are we dishonoring each other? Are we dishonoring our mate? And these, I'm saying these things in the negative form, but ultimately we want to be in the positive form where we'll say something like, where we are honoring our brother, our sister, our husband, our wife. We are honoring, the sacred earth. We're honoring the sacred foods that we even consume, right? All of these elements come into building ourselves and allowing our heart to be light. It's not only movement. It's really, how do you live? How do you represent yourself? How do you carry yourself? How do you raise your children? How do you feed your children? How do you treat your husband? How do you treat your brother? How do you treat the earth? It's really an embodiment of all these things, right? And
Mm.
are you still enough to be in oneness with source? Are you still enough to breathe, to notice your breath, the condition of your breath, and the thoughts that are running through your mind? Are you controlling the thoughts that are running through your mind? How can you do that? By slowing down, by mastering this physical temple, So it's a bit of all of that. It's not just movement.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
So speaking of books, what books would you recommend for someone who wants to read, wants to gain a knowledge of self, and wants to be informed? What books would you recommend?
So there's so many. Like right
'Cause
now,
I
the
know
stage.
you have like a whole bunch of books right behind you.
I know. I had
It-
actually one of the things I would say. One of the books I recommend is Ancient Future. I think
oh
this is
yeah.
a great book by Wayne Chandler. It really touches on metaphysics as well. So I think this is a good book because we can learn about, history. We can learn about culture. We can learn about um, all these things. But I think on top of that, we need to be able to master the whole being in space, right? Um, the books by Walamu Baruti, I have one here.
Mm.
Iwa is a great book too. He speaks to, how to groom African warrior scholars.
Mm.
This one is about a warrior's character,
Yes.
Dr. Walamu Baruti. Any of his books should be
And,
read.
and speaking of Baba Baruti, he also has an independent school in
Yes,
ATL as well. So
yes,
shout out to Baba Baruti, and he's been
yes,
teaching
yes.
independent for decades now.
Indeed, indeed. And I mean, these things start in our homes because it is part of how we live. If we value our history and our culture, if we value, how we live, then we want to teach it to our children. We don't want them to
Yes,
be indoctrinated in the public school system that trains them to work for somebody else. At
right,
least in a homeschool setting, we could teach them how to be warriors. We could teach them warriors in their bloodline, and we could teach them, yo, you can be independent. You can be an entrepreneur. You could be a business owner. You don't got to work for somebody else. Somebody might choose to do that, and that's cool. I don't knock education. Like my second child, he's 14. He's interested in the body. I'm like, okay, well, do you want to be a chiropractor? Do you want to be a physical therapist? Do you want to be an osteopath? Go to school for that. But no, you can also have a business. You can have your own practice. You can have other people working for you.
right.
You don't have to work for somebody else under somebody else in a hospital setting, for example. So there's options, and having our children having this awareness and this conversation consistently from when they're young helps equip them with choices. And sometimes, you know, I wouldn't say I didn't know that. My father is a businessman. He's always had a business. He had
Okay.
supermarkets. He had vegetable markets. He had a bar. He had the supermarket. If I think I said that, you know. So it's like my father was a businessman or is a businessman, but he didn't groom me to be a businesswoman. So having these conversations, I think, definitely is vital for our children to know that they got choices. They ain't got to be under somebody else. They don't have to be. They don't have to live their lives to fulfill somebody else's dreams. They have the
Exactly.
opportunity to formulate their own dreams and know that they can come to fruition. They can manifest them, and they can be other people that can support their dreams. You know, so that
Right,
they can.
exactly. And so that's my point of what I was saying earlier with these school systems, right? These school systems don't teach you to become a producer. These school
Right,
systems doesn't teach you to become a business owner. These school systems doesn't teach you to achieve your dreams. They
right,
teach you to basically be trained and, as you said, to carry out someone else's dream. And so again, this is a vicious cycle. And so this is why I'm having you on the live so that we can continue to break this vicious cycle and let it be known that you can do something else. You can incorporate your homeschooling institution inside of your home. You
right.
can teach your child by the age of 5 to be reading chapter books because it's very well possible. If you did it,
Absolutely.
beloved, so many other mothers and wives can also do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so many stories out there of families that have homeschooled their children, Black families that have homeschooled their children, and their children have graduated high school and college at the same time. You know,
Wow.
so they, you know, or they are halfway through college by the time they graduate high school. And this is high school in a way that not formal, you know what I mean? They can probably have a tutor. They might, you know, take college level courses um, uh, when they're in their high school age brackets, right? So there's so much that can be done. And because they're young, and I'm saying young, like through their teenage years, through their high school years, or, you know, age bracket, the high school age bracket up to like 17, like there's so much that our children can do because their brains are forming. It's like the time to really enrich them and provide them with the like information and opportunities to allow their brain the biological activity to be stronger and to have more capacity. You know what I'm saying? Like as we grow
Yeah.
older, like the neurons, the elasticity of our brain kind of changes. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
as young, if we're able to have as many neurons connect within their brain as possible, they're able to do more. Their brain capacity expands from young, you know? So yeah, exposing them, allowing them to be in spaces to excel. Is sometimes those spaces might not have other people that look like them, right? Uh, you know, it might be, you know, a diverse setting. Sometimes I feel a way about that because I always want my children to be around people that look like them. But sometimes they might be the only one. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And if that's the case, then something like what we're doing, like Umi Tribe with the younger children, is vital because at least they're getting a balance. Um,
Right.
every environment they're in is not, pardon me for saying so, whitewashed. You know what I mean? They're getting to see themselves. They're getting to hear about themselves. They're getting to learn about themselves. You know what I mean? Yeah, and they're able to feel confident, right? Because for them to lead, right, they need confidence. they need confidence. They need to have a strong self-esteem, you know,
Yes.
and sometimes in our school systems, they can't build that. Sometimes,
Exactly.
like, you know, our children are not called on. Even when I was in a yoga class, for example, I'm like the only person of color in the class, and ain't nobody paying me no mind. You know, I'm just kind of ignored. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't look like everybody else or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like they could be easily ignored. Whereas if they're in a setting that looks like them, with people that look like them, they're able to shine and unapologetically. You know, and I think that's vital.
Because I mean, I always say that if the first time your child is being read to is when he or she enters school, then you have failed them.
At a loss. At a
Like
loss.
you have to, because there's no way that I, as a teacher, should be reading to your child and that be the first time that your
Right.
child is being read to.
That's a
Like,
fact.
no. I
That's a
always
fact.
say that a child only educated at school is an uneducated child.
That's a fact. That's a
Because
fact.
again, there's the balance. Your child must also be educated at school, yes, but
Hmm.
also, and more importantly, your child must be educated at home. You
It's
see, a
must.
lot of us, we make excuses, right? We don't have time. And granted, we work and we have other responsibilities. But to me personally, the main responsibility is educating your child.
That's
The
a
main
fact.
responsibility is making sure that your child can read and write. Do you know that I have children in my class? Well, I had because school is over for me now, but I had students in my class who couldn't write their name properly.
Yeah.
This is real.
Wow.
This is a real thing. I'm not
Right.
just making this up,
Right.
right?
Right.
I had students in my class who couldn't read the word the, who couldn't read the word,
Yeah.
who doesn't know the letter A sound, who doesn't know the letter
Mm.
C sound, and so on
Yeah.
and so forth. So these things are real. And I
Hmm.
just shake my head all the time and I'm like, dang, when are we going to get it together?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It is our responsibility to, as the first teachers, to provide our children with some kind of orientation. Like before our children reach kindergarten, I think even preschool, they should have read or have been read at least 1,000 books. You know, at least, and that means that you got to put in that work every single day. And it's
Yes.
not, don't even think about it as work. It's quality time. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's quality time. Like, okay, anybody could get pregnant. I mean, you know, aside from people that might have some biological issues, you know, or difficulties and challenges, but like anybody can have sex and wind up pregnant. You know what I mean? But to cultivate a child, to nurture a child, to spend time with your child and give them,
Come
you
on.
know, like your undivided attention.
Come on.
And you know, these children's books are not long.
Right.
Before you think about it, it's done. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
it's like you know, you see your children's reactions light up. It's definitely sometimes we overthink things. We say, well, I don't know how to teach. I'm not a teacher. I haven't been trained as a teacher. And some parents might be intimidated, you know? It don't take a whole lot of time, especially with the younger children. It does not take a whole lot of time. You know,
And
I
plus,
spend a lot
they
of
don't,
time
yeah,
teaching my child
right.
because I highly value it, you know, and he I teach for the most part, as long as he kind of allows me, you know, as long as he's engaged, you know, I see that he's down. So if he's down,
Okay.
I'm down. I'm gonna keep giving him something new. You know what I mean? And sometimes he might not want to. I'll be like, okay, well, you know, you might want to watch. So we have a balance, right? Where we will allow our child to watch TV, you know, certain programs, not just TV all day long or whatever you want. Like, but I make sure like that TV ain't going on before 6 p.m. at the very least. If it's
Wow.
going on that day, it's not
Right.
going on before 6 p.m. Maybe right now, so he doesn't interrupt this interview.
Right.
but but it's not on before 6 p.m. most of the time. And so because he knows that he gets that time on the TV or the tablet, I let him use my tablet for certain activities. Because yeah, they're in the technological age, so they're gonna have to know how to deal with technology. Cool, but we can't allow like the TV or the tablet or the technology to be our child's babysitter. You understand? Like, so I'm like, look, if you can sit down uninterrupted and watch a whole program, right? You need to right now sit down with me because we're gonna learn how to read together. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes he's a little resistant, but when I throw that in there, he kind of humbles a little bit, and allows me to go ahead and, teach him. And, he gets excited, especially when there's a routine. When we
That's good.
establish a routine and a practice that they expect it, they want it, they want to spend that time with you because our children want to spend that time with us. They want that undivided attention, right? So if we utilize the time wisely, it don't have to be a long time. It could be 30 minutes, a little bit of reading. Okay, you want a snack? How many snacks do you have? Let's count how many snacks do we have. Oh, you ate one. How many snacks do you have left? Whatever that is, it could be a mandarin. Have it in this little pieces. Oh, you
Right.
have 10 slices of mandarin. Let's count them one by one. There's so many different things that we can do without overthinking it. Things that are part of our regular day without overthinking it. There was a moth on our patio screen door today. And my son is like, oh, there's a bug. He don't like bugs. Bug.
Oh, yeah.
But so we have a little plastic container. I'm like, all right, well, let's catch it. And it has little breathing holes. So we got it in the container, put the cover on it, put a little piece of cantaloupe in there, and we're just watching it, talking about it. Look at its wings. How many feet does it have? How many legs does it have? Let's see how long it takes for it to get on the piece of cantaloupe. It fell over it, so it made a sound and it started flying around. You know what I mean? Oh, what happened? So having these basic conversations, and spending that one time, is needed. Is definitely
Yeah.
needed. Letting them know, that you're there to support and help them along the way is priceless.
Indeed. So now,
I saw somebody, before you go ahead, I saw somebody say something. I didn't catch it and I can't scroll up to the message. They said something about a balance of interacting with the world.
balance.
Yeah, something about balancing them, the children out. And I think
Oh,
it's,
it was a question.
yeah, there was a
I
question up
see
there.
it by black_standard. He said, don't we need a balance so they know how to interact anywhere in the world? You
Yeah,
want to
I
answer
mean,
that?
they're gonna do that anyway because people that homeschool don't just be stuck in the house all day. Like we mentioned earlier, we visit museums, we visit libraries, we engage with other families. Um, we go to like playgrounds. There are other children in the playground, so there's conversations around that. We go to workshops. We went to the New Jersey State Museum in Trenton the other day. They had a workshop on lighthouses, the
Wow.
importance of lighthouses, the purpose of lighthouses. And there were children from all over the place there. So homeschooling allows us to use the world as our classroom. You can learn anywhere from anything, anytime. And oftentimes you might want to put your child in a program like more martial arts, like swimming, like African drumming, like African dance, like the sister that I'm in the program that runs Umi Tribe with me. She has a son in Capoeira right now. You know what I mean? So there is always an opportunity to expose our children to different things in the farmers market when you are, out and about in the world. You know what I'm saying? So there are a lot of opportunities. I know, I was listening to Anthony O'Neill's podcast some time ago, and he had a homeschooling family on there, and the lady said that she has her daughters with them in their business, so they're engaging with adults even. So homeschooling children do not only interact with peers, with their own peers, their own age group. They're interacting with a myriad of people in a variety of ages, and that allows them to have better communication skills, It allows them to interact with other adults, not only the person or their parent or the person that's teaching them. It allows a more holistic process, and learning is not only sitting down at a desk for how many hours a day, So really homeschooling is exploring the world as your classroom. Yeah. So
Yes,
thank you for the
indeed,
person that
indeed.
asked that question.
Yes, and if you have any more questions for the sister, you can definitely drop them in the comment box below,
I've seen
so
some
that
other
you
stuff
can
come up. It's kind of past,
have
and
an order of questions
yeah,
for our
you might
Q&A
you might have to pull them up.
session.
hmm
Oh, you've seen something else?
I mean, I saw someone must have wrote. I didn't read it. I couldn't read it because it was a little lengthy. But yeah, I saw some few people drop some comments in there. I just can't scroll back up to them for some reason.
Yeah, it was a comment. It says, the girl Kimball. What I know now about homeschooling is that it can be a healthier environment than what it offered or what has become the social norm.
Yeah, I would say so, especially during the pandemic, or plandemic or scandemic, however you refer to it. I mean, our children. So my middle child is in high school. Um, he like in the local high school. When they opened schools back up, he had to go to school with a mask on, and I'm
Right,
like, that's not healthy. It's not healthy for you to for children to be in a space for mad hours, for so many hours with limited access to oxygen. They're just breathing in their toxic refuse. So that's not a healthy environment to be in. So yeah, definitely when we homeschool, it can definitely be healthy. We could teach to our children's needs, to our children's abilities. We can also tap into the community when we need help, and there's so much help and information out there. Another thing too, every public school system district, they have their even your state, every state has outlines to guide, to inform parents that have their children in school, but homeschoolers can utilize, for example, their standards. For example, okay, what should children learn at this age? So there are standards for every state. You can find out what grade is learning what, in what sequence they're learning it. Another thing is known as the scope and sequence. Like, what do they teach, and in what order do children learn certain things? So there's information out there that can help you if you need it, to help guide how you look for curriculum. There are curriculum out there you can buy. You can create your own. You can do a blend of the two, and you can use your state standards, and district standards as a guide if you so choose to. So there's a lot. So academically, there's a lot of support out there. There are also other communities, or rather people that have homeschool communities. Some of them are faith-based. Some of them, like you mentioned with Baba Baruti, are out in Atlanta. Um, I'm not a part of any other homeschool groups at this time. I used to
mhm.
be years ago. But again, I didn't find that it was appealing to our interests and our needs as a
Okay.
family. So we kind of eased off of that.
Ha- Have you thought about starting one of your own?
So so our Umi tribe, like the sis I work with, we are in a lot of conversation about how we want to evolve,
Yeah,
and how we would like to provide what we are doing with our children currently, uh, at a larger scale. So that has been part of the conversation. So there are different things that you can do. You could do a nonprofit, you could formulate, a regular LLC. We don't necessarily want to do like a preschool daycare vibe. We don't want to be regulated by the state, honestly. um, we want to be able to dictate how we function.
right.
Um, yeah. So one of the things that we also talked about is the possibility of and are in the works of maybe creating resources to support other families based on
Mm,
what we are doing in our homeschool setting. So for those that are interested in doing what we do, we're in conversation about providing or creating resources, like our own resources for families as well. Yeah.
awesome. I think that would be dope. That would be
Yeah, I
dope.
think so too. Yeah, I tend to, so I just really need to sit with it. Honestly, I tend to start, I have a few kind of started. I need to sit with them and so they're more like curriculum based, um, um resources that can help teach the younger children some basic stuff. Um, yeah. So we definitely got a few things in the works. We're young in what we're doing right now. I mean, I say we're young, even though I have homeschool experience from 18 years ago with my eldest. But in terms of what we're doing right now, we're young. So, like we mentioned, the evolution, like we're constantly evolving as a people. So, even as a collective, we're evolving to see what serves our community best and what we can provide and what the community needs from us. So, there's definitely space and room for growth.
Mm. So now, I always say that your home, your your home should be conducive to the learning environment in which you want to convey, right? So I love that you have a library inside of your home. I love that you're teaching inside of your home. And I love that you're also planting and growing food inside of your home, which is again paramount and superb. So let's talk about gardening and agriculture for a bit, and for again for the people who are on this live and the people that will be listening on YouTube. The sister and I, we are partnering up together because again, it's collaboration over competition. So we're collaborating together to bring to the community, to bring to the people the importance of agriculture and the science of agriculture and why we should grow our own foods. You see the things that's happening now in today's time, right? Gas prices are at an all-time high. Food
Mm.
products are continuously increasing. Okay, so the universe, Allah, whoever are telling us to go back to what we used to do, right? There's been a shortage on um, milk formula, right? Telling the woman to breastfeed more. I mean, if you don't have any, if you don't have any milk formula, you better use what God gave you, right? So we need to go back to what we used to do, grow our food, learn about agriculture, learn about farming, right? So, sister, what prompted you to um, s- want to grow food inside of your house?
Yeah, well, I always love to be like return to like basics, return to nature. Um, Growing our own food is very empowering. You decide how it is grown, the intention put into it, what you grow, how it is tended to, uh, and then you also, you got to like pay attention to it, so like the caterpillars and the aphids and whatnot don't eat up your crops. So I think knowing that how important it is to grow your own food so that you could control what it is that you're consuming more so and have access when you want is what I think is the basis of my interest in growing my own food. Yeah, and I have a little bit of experience because some years ago I was working with somebody that helped me grow a whole heap of food. And it was just amazing for me to have that first time experience in growing my own lettuces and my own cucumbers, my own peppers, tomatoes, my own kale, cabbage, my own zucchini, my own eggplant, and herbs and scallions. And, it was just so empowering. We now too are, I mean, agriculture, farming as a whole is really like under attack,
Right.
because there's so much pesticides, there's so many chemicals, there's so much manipulation with seeds that's taking
Chemtrails.
place currently, chemtrails, genetically modified organisms, and the different way that they're changing the language and the coding for these kinds of produce. Um, and it's like, you're in a space where you're like, what can you trust? What produce can you trust? Like, can you even trust organic food? Because more times organic farms also are owned by companies that have conventional farms that are being sprayed with pesticides. And there is the fact of runover where, the water and the pesticides that's on the conventional foods is just also bleaching into, or just feeding into the soil and the quote unquote organic crop. So to it's very challenging to sustain, or to even know what you're consuming in this day and age. So the more
Mm.
that we can grow our own food, whether it's in your own garden, in a raised bed, in containers, in your local community gardens, in your friend's backyard, in your brother's backyard, in your cousin's
Somewhere.
yard, like wherever, I think it's important, and I really need to do more of it, honestly. Yeah, because we need it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, awesome. So, family, if you are interested in attending this agricultural event, which is happening in Elizabeth, New Jersey, this Saturday, June 25th from 2 to 5, definitely click the link in my bio to RSVP. We will have vegan food, vegan smoothies presented by Sister Jeanette, who is on the live with us. And we have some health books, and it's gonna be a great vibe. Definitely, you're gonna receive some pet plots as well to help you get started on again growing your own food and just being excited to grow your own food. And because yeah, I mean that's just like you said, man, it's definitely empowering, and to know that something can start from a seed and grow and blossom into something as beautiful as kale, as beautiful as lettuce, as beautiful as tomato. I mean, that's that's beautiful. That's nature. That's God within itself, right? Because they say, I think this is a Kemetic proverb. If you want to see God, look at nature,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Facts. Yep.
Because nature will tell you to be patient. Nature will tell you to water, to maintain, and to be dedicated to to the flower, to the ground, right? To
Right.
the farm in which you are tilling and you are maintaining. So definitely we should use those same attributes or characteristics within our own lives to be dedicated, to be responsible, to water ourselves and to nurture ourselves so that us, can grow and blossom into something beautiful as flowers and as tomatoes and as trees are
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Got to return to nature, and the return to nature is a return to our own nature, which is a divine source. I mean, it's someone, Iron Steel Slinger, I think, had said that we can't trust anything, not even the air that we breathe. And although that may be true, um, I mean, what you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like we gotta still breathe, and we still gotta control as much as we can control.
Yeah.
Um, I think taking um, uh, taking advantage of what we can control is important and vital. And because the air outside might be so challenging right now,
Mhm.
you know, with chemtrails or what have you, um, practices such as meditation, such as breath work and yoga, internal art is so vital because different breathing techniques can help cleanse and purify your respiratory system to release toxins from your body, you know, that we are consuming from whatever avenue we may be consuming it from. And then the other piece is really working on our mind. And although we can't control some things, you know, control what we can. And one of those main things is our intention. You know, how are we perceiving and thinking about some things? If we're consistently thinking about this is, you know, toxic, the earth is toxic, the food is toxic, nah, I ain't gonna do that. You know, I'm going to pray over my food. I'm gonna speak some strong word over my food and over my water and even the air that I breathe. I'm gonna give thanks and praises that I woke up this day for that breath. You know what I mean? So there's certain things that we can't control to a level. So control what we can, you know, and do the best that we can with the tools that our ancestors have been known, you know, wrote upon the walls. You know what I mean? We could check it out and put into practice right here and right now so that we can find balance even with the challenges that we're dealing with. Yeah, and
Indeed,
cook your
indeed.
own food. That's right. Cook your own food. Sometimes we're so comfortable, you know, going to restaurants. And I like to eat. And since I do all the cooking at home, you know, or food preparation at home, I like to go out to a restaurant. I'm gonna be honest, you know.
Right. Because you cook so
So,
much,
you
right?
know, but be mindful where you going. Like, don't my children don't know nothing about no fast food restaurants. They ain't grow like that. You know what I mean? So, you know, we go to select spaces
Yeah.
and again, you know, put that
And black-owned
intention.
spots, African black-owned spots.
Yeah,
Exactly.
word up, you know, as much as possible, as much as possible. My husband be like, yeah, you know, you need to do a restaurant. And I'm like, I don't know. You know, that work is for certain people. Um, but it's like, yeah, try to circulate that money within the
Right,
community as much
right,
as possible.
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, beloved, it's been a monumental interview. It's been a superb hour and a half that I was able to spend with you and to learn so much about homeschooling. But not only me, I hope also that the audience also got to learn about agriculture, about planting your own food, homeschooling, the importance of education, right? And everything else that we have talked about here today. So thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your positive energy. And thank you for your supreme intellect as well. Any last words, any takeaways that you want the people to know about?
Yeah, but I definitely want to shout out all those that showed up and you know were engaged in this conversation and listen on in. Thank you, brother, for you know having this conversation with me. I appreciate you. Um, yeah, and like we said, like I guess a little recap is really you know control what we can control. You know, teach our own, grow our own. Go back to our roots, the indigenous practices of our ancestors. Um, helped them and we can still utilize them to help ourselves to find balance, harmony within ourselves, our families, our community, and in essence with nature, so we could live divinely regardless of what's going on around us. Yeah, I
And
like to say that.
where can the people find you at, beloved?
Wherever Fruits of Life Yoga, fruitsoflifeyoga.com, Fruits of Life Yoga right here on Instagram. um I am on Facebook too, but I don't spend a whole lot of time over there. I have a Fruits of Life Yoga YouTube. So just look for Fruits of Life Yoga and you're going to find me. And maybe I might start adding some more videos to my YouTube.
Right, right, indeed.
Yeah, yeah. So Fruits of Life Yoga. And again, for the homeschool is at Umi Tribe right here on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ah,
Indeed. Uh, yes, thank you so much. So, family, if you learned anything here today, if you enjoyed our discourse, Definitely follow the sister. She just gave out her Instagram. And again, it's Fruits of Life Yoga. And definitely, if you learned anything, click the link in my bio and make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. This whole conversation will be up on YouTube and many other conversations that I've had in the past. So I leave you as I greet you. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom, shalom. Hotep. Islam. Alafia. Peace.